Hello, boys and girls. A bit of a different perspective today. I am trying to give you a bit of a change of background rather than always filming into my office. So today we are going to talk about the biology of the brain, and I will give you 5 keys to enhance the better functioning of your brain, to get your brain to work correctly. You'd think that'd be the first thing that anybody would teach us when we begin in life, but of course nobody does until you hit a brick wall and your brain stops functioning altogether. And we will also cover 5 causes for the brain to stop working, and that is based on the Wilderness Emergency Medicine Guide to Altered Mental Status. Of course, understanding the functioning of your brain is a prerequisite for everything that you feel and experience, since our brain is, after all, our main operating software, so to speak, and yet it tends to be the part of our body that we seem to understand the least. So understanding, knowing, and learning how your brain works and how to remove the brakes upon your brain will allow you to gain greater control over how you feel, think, act, and react. Our brain is made up of 75% water. It consumes 20% of your overall oxygen and 20% of the blood circulating in your body. What this means, basically, very simply, is the better we hydrate, breathe, and promote good blood flow through our body, the more efficiently our brain will function. So here are your 5 keys to getting your brain to work. Key number 1 is oxygen, O2. Learning to oxygenate adequately is a prerequisite to ensure and improve the functioning of our brain, especially after trauma. We spoke about that in our previous videos here on the channel. Diaphragmatic belly breathing, for instance, belly breathing helps us shift from the sympathetic gear of the autonomous central nervous system, which is the fight or flight mode, into the parasympathetic gear, which is the rest or digest gear, allowing us to restore more efficient brain functioning. Key number 2 is hydration, or H2O. Researchers found that students who drink water during exams perform a full grade higher, in other words, 10% better than those who do not. Visual attention and memory are proven to increase with better hydration as well. This is due to, number 1, the enhanced performance of the brain when properly hydrated, and number 2, the fact that drinking water is shown to alleviate anxiety, which, as we know, negatively affects performance. Your key number 3 is sleep. Rest is essential. Without proper sleep, the brain stops functioning altogether. Studies demonstrate that loss or lack of quality of sleep has dramatic effect on our mental abilities and physical health as well. Lack or loss of sleep quality destroys brain cells and also prevents existing brain cells to communicate effectively together, impairing our brain functions, affecting our memory and decision-making abilities, and leading to deficiency in cognitive abilities, mental lapses, and loss in perception. Just a single night of bad sleep impairs the hippocampus part of the brain, which is a critical region for storing memories. Studies demonstrate that sleep loss can lead to irreversible brain cell damage. Lack of sleep will also affect your overall health and make you prone to serious medical conditions, infections, immune system deficiency, and neurodegenerative diseases. So, in other words, long quality sleep every night is essential. The hours before midnight, we've said it before, are the most restorative hours. Sleep in complete darkness is important, avoiding blinking, flashing lights, and lit electronic devices, and sleeping in silence. Of course, deep, uninterrupted sleep, preferably 8 hours, is essential. Also, another key is to prepare efficiently for sleep by slowing your metabolism down in the later part of the day and the evening, which includes eating earlier rather than later, and avoiding engaging in intense activities or, of course, conflictual activities and conflictual confrontations in the later part of the day, which actually are best avoided altogether for overall health. Key number 4 is nutrition. We've talked about this before as well. Nutrition, of course, plays an essential part in the health of our brain. A healthy diet, rich in dark vegetables, fruits, and antioxidants, enhances the functioning of the brain. High intake of saturated fat and cholesterol is known to clog arteries, as we all know, and contribute to stroke and brain cell damage. Studies show also that people who are overweight are twice as likely to develop dementia later in life. Those suffering from high cholesterol and high blood pressure are 6 times more likely to experience brain function degeneration. Key number 5 is movement. Physical and mental activity, keeping a healthy mind in a healthy body, also known as mens sana in corpore sano in Latin. Our brain contains about 100 billion neurons, each linking to others in a network encompassing trillions of connections. This makes the human brain the most complicated entity in the universe. Like the rest of our body, our brain, if neglected, will gradually lose agility, flexibility, and begin deteriorating. In other words, to remain sharp and well functioning, both the body and the brain need regular exercise. Physical activity ensures better blood flow to our vital organs, including the brain. It encourages the production of new brain cells, lowers stress and anxiety and the related hormones, of course, and reduces the risks of heart attack, stroke, and diabetes. Mentally stimulating activities like studying, learning new skills, new languages, playing an instrument, creating music, and other forms of intellectual stimulation also strengthen the brain cells, reinforcing electrical activities between existing cells and prompting the production of new cells. The repetition of learned tasks is what enables specific neural connections to become active and operational. In other words, the more we continue learning, the smarter we continue being. Now we're going to move on to the 5 causes for the brain to stop functioning altogether. And again, this is from the Emergency Guide to Altered Mental Status from Emergency Medicine. We call this to stop in emergency medicine, and this stands for toxin, sugar or seizures, temperature, oxygen, and pressure. So your cause number 1 is toxins. Of course, here we're talking about poisons, overdoses of either drugs or alcohol or medications, carbon monoxide poisoning, snake bites or other ingested poisons, and drugs and alcohol. The casual use of cigarettes, drugs, and alcohol in itself has physical implications that severely damage every single organ in the body. We all know that smoking causes permanent lung damage and drinking irreversible liver damage. What is less understood, however, is that regular alcohol and drug use prompts irreversible brain damage. The chronic and potentially life-threatening deterioration of the brain and body due to alcohol and drug intake can start with symptoms as simple as changes in sleep patterns, loss of quality or quantity of sleep, shortened attention span, or decrease in coordination. Symptoms can gradually worsen and lead to severe cognitive disruptions and serious mental health conditions. Chemical substance can and will alter the chemistry of the brain responsible for coordinating our motor skills, motivation, and emotions. Prolonged use causes permanent damage to the area of the brain responsible for our psychological and emotional well-being. Additionally, alcohol is a solvent that also prompts dehydration. Your cause number 2 is sugar and seizures, hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia in conditions such as diabetes, epilepsy, and what is important here is knowing to recognize symptoms and take rapid and proper corrective action. So for those of us who are emergency medicine first responders, of course, we know about diabetes, but you may not know that hypoglycemia is also a condition that can happen outside of diabetes to people who have this genetic condition like myself. And that means that if you're an athlete and you're training at high intensity level and you have had an early supper, let's say 5 or 6 p.m., which is actually a very good time for a healthy discipline of life, and you go from 5 or 6 p.m. through the entire night, sleeping and resting, and then awaken at 5 or 6 a.m., and go on to a high-intensity athletic training like swimming, obviously your brain is without nutrition, without sugars for so long that you can experience in the morning like this hypoglycemia if you are hypoglycemic, which will not happen if you've had a late supper in the late hours of the night and you're just awakening. This is not going to be creating hypoglycemia, very unlikely at least, if you've eaten late. However, if you eat early and go for a full 12 hours, let's say, without nutrition, and then engage in an hour of intensive training, then very likely your sugars will be low in your body. So it's important to recognize what is hypoglycemia and what is simply a natural response to unnatural circumstances and event, and not confuse the two. Now, cause number 3 is temperature. Here we're talking about too hot temperatures or too cold temperatures, either one of which can create heat stroke, obviously, or hypothermia, and both of them will affect brain functioning, potentially leading to unconsciousness, coma, and even death. Cause number 4 is oxygen, and here we're talking a lack thereof, obviously. Airway, hypoxia, shock, and hyperventilation in the face of emotional trauma can both affect brain and body functioning. And your last cause number 5, is pressure. So we're talking about, in emergency medicine, we're talking about head injury, physical pressure, stroke, or ACE, high altitude cerebral edema. In emotional health, we're talking about emotional pressure, and here I want to mention peritraumatic dissociation, which is a natural response to unnatural circumstances, situations, or events of a traumatic nature. I'm very familiar with peritraumatic dissociation. This is one of the areas that I've made my expertise for a simple fact that I've experienced it over and over, starting at an early age. Peritraumatic dissociation happens when you're faced with a level of pain, terror, fear, confrontation, and life threat, which is such that your brain is no longer able to respond and react to the level of intensity that you're faced with. So I'm going to give you the example of a wildlife chase, for instance, a hunt where a predator is hunting a prey. As long as the prey is engaged and saving its life, you will see the prey's body, the prey's mind, I would say, brain, completely engaged in the body, running in a fight to save its life. And the moment the predator's jaw closes on the throat of the prey, you might see the prey's body going instantly loose, limp, relaxed, and comfortable. So the prey is not dead, obviously, at that moment. What it is simply the spirit, the mind, so to speak, splitting from the body to protect itself. It's a preservation, a self-preservation mechanism, a coping mechanism in the face of a degree of pain, physical, mental, and emotional pain that the mind is not capable of facing. So in that state, you're experiencing basically the realm of the subconscious mind. You're no longer connected to any physical or emotional sensations. It's quite extraordinary to experience it, though I do not wish it on anybody, because it simply means that you are in the between space between life and death. But in that space, you will be relieved of all emotions and all physical sensations, which means no matter the critical injuries that you sustain, you're not able to feel the pain of those injuries, and you're not able to feel emotions either. No distress and no anger, of course, and no reactions whatsoever. The side effects is you're disconnected from the body, so you're not able to physically engage, respond, or react to what's happening around you. So it's a last recourse mechanism simply allowing your mind to stay safe from the harm imposed on your body. When you experience this very early on in life, in my case, I started experiencing peritraumatic dissociation as early as 2 years old due to critical skull fractures. And so when you experience that over and over, the problem is it becomes a habit from the brain to split into the dissociative mode, and you tend to then go into that state as soon as something becomes uncomfortable, which is not good because it prevents you from responding and protecting yourself. So we have developed a lot of and engaged in a lot of research, myself and my colleagues, on how to stop dissociative tendencies, and had good results in that we're now able, for somebody like myself who used to slip into the dissociative state pretty regularly, I'm now able to somehow respond and react even when confronted and in very uncomfortable situations. However, it takes work, it takes a lot of research and a lot of exploration to be able to break that habit. It doesn't happen instantly, and it also explains why somebody who is being confronted and belligerently attacked, whether it's simply emotional attacks or psychological attacks, can slip into that state and stop being able to respond. So that's important to understand if you're dealing with somebody who is not responding as you would like them to be responding. The more you pressure them when they're in a state of dissociation, the more they're going to withdraw within and be absolutely incapable to even think of what you're saying and respond accordingly. So it's important to remove the abuse from that point in order for the mind to be able to resume proper functioning. If you'd like to know more about peritraumatic dissociation, please let me know and I will dedicate a full video on this topic. So comment underneath, because I am very immersed in that research of peritraumatic dissociation and how to reverse it and how to work with it. So let me know and I will share my research with happy enthusiasm about that. So basically there you go. You've got, to sum up, a healthy nutrition combined with physical, mental activity and healthy social interactions, of course, because unhealthy social contact is deadly social contact, even if it's not of a physical nature, even if it is of an emotional and psychological nature. It leads to life-altering consequences and sequels in your ability to function. Overall in life, hygiene, fitness, discipline, and good habits are the best steps to keep your brain and your body engaged, healthy, fit, and happy. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. I'm Genvièv, forensic and clinical hypnotherapist, board certified instructor with the NGH, an emergency medicine responder with the Wilderness Medicine Institute. You are here on my channel. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. You should see a red button somewhere below. That's where you simply hit click, and that lets me know that my topics are of interest to you and you'd like me to continue sharing them. Otherwise, do share this with those you think might benefit. I will see you in my next video. Until then, cheers everybody.